Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chillin in the Foyer. Appreciate you being here today. Have you ever felt like someone was measuring your discipleship by rules that aren't actually in scriptures? Maybe they said good members don't watch PG-13 movies, or you should never drink caffeine. That might be a fence law, an unofficial rule meant to protect a real commandment, but sometimes those fences cause more harm than good. So let's talk about what fence laws are, where they come from, and how we can keep the gospel simple and true. So where do they come from? The idea comes from ancient Judaism, where religious leaders created fences around commandments to help people avoid getting even close to sin. So if God said, keep the Sabbath day holy, they added extra rules, like not walking too far or not carrying anything too heavy. The intentions were actually really good, but over time those fences become so rigid that people treated them as if they were commandments themselves. So we at times do the same thing in LDS culture today without realizing it. So here are some examples that you may have heard. You shouldn't drink caffeine. Righteous women always wear dresses to church. If you're a male, you should always wear a white shirt and tie. Good members avoid PG-13 and rated R movies. You're not faithful if you miss a second meeting or you don't go to your state conference meetings. You need to go on a mission to be a good Latter-day Saint. You shouldn't have a second ear piercing if you're a girl, or things like that. You should never wear a two-piece swimsuit. Some of those things are personal standards, some are cultural, and some are just preferences that are passed down, but they are not doctrine. And if we start treating them like their doctrine, we risk turning culture into commandments, which can create shame, pride, and confusion. So Elder Uchtdorf warned, sometimes traditions, customs, social practices, and even personal preferences may, if we are not careful, be regarded as equal to doctrine. So what is he teaching us here? He's teaching us to remember that there are things that are our own traditions, our own practices or preferences that we might think of as doctrine, and then we pass that on and judge other people by that. If we want to live by those things, that's fine. What we need to not do is pass the judgment on others or teach other people that this is some sort of doctrine or policy when it's absolutely not. Elder Holland also reminded us the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 are the ones who speak for the Lord in this day. So if a rule did not come from those leaders in an official setting like General Conference, the handbook, or a published statement, it's not binding doctrine. And I want us to remember what we learned in earlier episodes is just because something was said one time at General Conference does not make it doctrine or policy. And one thing I'll go back to is in the mid-90s, President Gordon B. Hinckley, and first let me say, I love President Gordon B. Hinckley. He was the prophet from the time I was 14 till 27. So over his presidency and time as the prophet, I went from a teacher to a priest on my mission, got married in the temple, had my first son. So a lot of things in my life happened. I will always love him. However, he did talk about that there shouldn't be a double piercing for women. Now, that's not doctrine. And from what I can tell, he's the only one to have said such a thing. And so that is a personal preference or something that he taught. And we are more than welcome to follow that. But what I'm saying is, do not judge other people who choose not to follow that for themselves, as it is not doctrine, it's not policy. I would say at best it was counsel. Okay, so that's what I'm getting at here, and I just wanted to make sure that was understood, because I do love and respect President Hinckley, and I also know that did cause some issues, and not that we can't say things that don't cause issues, but rather that there's nothing official about that. It has not been something that's been taught by multiple prophets over the years. So fence laws can be extremely helpful personally, but they should never be the yardstick we use to judge others, just like I said. That was just kind of the final part of that. So as we close up here, the gospel of Jesus Christ is built on covenants, grace, and love, not a checklist, not cultural expectations, and not someone else's rules. So if you are ever unsure about whether something is doctrine or even policy, ask yourself these following questions. Is this taught by the First Presidency or the Quorum of the 12? Does the Spirit confirm it to me personally? And does it draw me closer to Christ or further into comparison with others? Let's focus on what really matters and leave the fences where they belong, outside the center of our faith. I appreciate you being here with me today. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, love God, love others. Thanks again.